Om Yogis, let's begin seated. Find a comfortable seat. Welcome today to a yin practice for the legs. And once you find your comfortable seat, just hear these words. We do not use the body to get into a pose. Rather, we use the pose to get into the body. Before we start the asana practice, let's use the breath to get into the body a little bit. Starting with a balancing breath, Nadi Shodhana. So we're going to cover left and right nostrils as we go. And we're going to inhale left nostril to begin. 2, 3, 4. Exhale right nostril. 2, 3, 4. Inhale right nostril. 2, 3, 4. Exhale left nostril. 2, 3, 4. Inhale left. Exhale right. Inhale right. And exhale left. You've got the pattern now, so carry on your own. And as you carry on your own, see if you can find the pause at the top of your breath. So as you inhale, find the natural pause and just fall into it. And as you exhale, find the pause at the bottom of the breath and fall into that. So we're doing Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing at your own pace, and just adding a natural retention. Allow yourself to fall into that retention now. Keep going. Just allow yourself to become captivated by your own breath, by the feelings of falling into the top and bottom of the breath, captivated by the retention. Beautiful. Reminding yourself that we do not use the body to get into a pose. Rather, we use the pose to get into the body. Or in this case, we use the breath to get into the body. Just do one more round on your own. Or maybe that's 2 more rounds. And then when you're ready, release the arms. Take a big, nice, full breath here. And we come into our first pose of the day, butterflies. So soles of the feet together, knees go wide. You can prop your hips up onto a blanket. If this is more comfortable for you, you can prop your legs with blocks. So as the pose takes us into the body, oftentimes we will want to run away. It's very natural when we feel trapped or captivated by our practice. Our legs and everything in us really wants to move. And I'd like to quote a really dear friend of mine, Gemma Cook. She'll know who she is. Gave me the best description of a yin practice that I've heard in a long time the other day. She said, yin is like being a really bouncy ball trapped inside a really small box. So you feel like a really bouncy ball that is trapped inside a really small box. You get still and everything settles down. But then the mind starts bouncing and we're all over the place again. And the smaller the box, the faster we start bouncing against the walls, if you like. It is not so easy to be still. It is not so easy to be captivated and captured by our practice. And I heard a similar quote that said, if you sat down on your evening time, and your legs started walking, even though you were sitting in the chair, we would say the legs are mad. This is sometimes called restless leg syndrome. My legs actually do this. But the mind is like this for most, if not all of us. And when we get still, the mind keeps turning, it keeps going. It's like that bouncy ball inside a little box. And most of us think that is normal. Now, our legs are meant to move, but not all of the time. And we all consciously and happily take the load off the legs. We know when it's time to rest. But sadly, the physical stillness can make the mind jump all over the place. So we're at an odds with ourselves really sometimes in a yin practice, that we want to be still, but the mind starts bouncing around. So the discipline of yin is to remain still and drop the mind into the sensations. Or, more accurately, drop the mind into the body. So in the pose, we let the mind get really interested in how things feel and really interested in what is happening in the body. What are the little tiny adjustments it makes that you can't see from the outside, but you can feel them? So a yin practice becomes a meditation. And as a meditation, we can ask, what will happen when we drop through the layers of tension? What happens when we remember that the shape is not permanent? What happens when we remember to breathe? Or when we remember to relax where possible? And the key of this practice is to remember to relax. We're taking the loading out of the legs. So ideally, for every pose that we do today, see if you can find a position whereby if you were asked to, you could consider sleeping. Beautiful, lovely. Let's inhale here. Now exhale, take your legs wide for straddle pose. If straddle pose is uncomfortable for you and you couldn't possibly sleep here, consider bending your knees, maybe propping underneath your legs. Consider using a prop underneath your buttocks to encourage your pelvis to tip forward. Or even consider staying upright. If you have a wall space that you can work with, consider letting your body lean against the wall and just opening your legs. Consider the sensations of meditation. Consider the idea that you are taking the loading out of your legs. See if you could consider the idea of sleeping. You're so relaxed. And if you're not relaxed, use props to support you. Blankets, bolsters, the wall even. So yeah, yin is like being a really bouncy ball trapped inside a really small box. You get still and everything settles for a time, but then your mind starts bouncing around. The smaller the box, the faster the bounce, and we're all over the place again. But lovelies, the benefit of being a ball in a box is that the edges within us are felt. The poses provide a really good boundary. They captivate us so we can feel ourselves. Even sometimes to a point where it can feel a little bit claustrophobic. We get sort of stressed upon the edge of ourselves, and we're challenged physically through the tissues in our body. And the stresses start to create electrical and chemical signals that actually change the quality of the tissues that transmit the signals. So in other words, we can think of being in the box, being in the pose, as a kind of physical or mental acupressure. And this pressure stimulates energy to flow. So if you're feeling like a ball in a box, lean against your edges, lean into it. Think of this as being some kind of physical or mental acupressure. And the pressure inside of you is stimulating energy to flow within you. So the box is actually freeing up your energy, or the pose is actually freeing up your energy. Beautiful, lovelies. Let's inhale here. And exhale, slowly, slowly bring yourself out of that 10-minute hold. And then bring your feet to the outside edges of your mat. Bend your knees and just roll to the side edges of your feet so as to create this windscreen wiper action with your legs, leaning back into your hands. To release all of that, release those edges, just get soft for a moment. Lovely. Our next pose is going to be either yogi's choice, forward fold, or legs up the wall if you have a wall space. So it's your choice. If you're folding forward, use props. Legs up the wall, pretty self-explanatory. Remind yourself to find a posture where sleep could be considered a possibility. And once you find the pose, let your mind get really interested in how things feel and what is happening in the body as a meditation. As a meditation, see what happens when you drop through layers of tension. See what happens when you remember to breathe. When you drop into the pauses or fall into the retentions that happen naturally between the breaths. Relaxing where possible, releasing the hinge of your jaw, and dropping deeply into your exhalation here. Beautiful. If you've fallen asleep, it's time to wake up and gently bring yourself in whatever way works out of the pose. The counter posture for the forward fold or legs at the wall today is tabletop. So we're bringing the hands and feet to the floor and just lifting through the hips. And you can either stay still in your tabletop, or you can consider lifting up on the inhale and lowering down on the exhalation. So just for a moment, let the ball bounce, as it were. Notice if it's bouncing a little bit slower now. Slow down a little bit. As you begin to get used to the edges of your practice, or the little box it puts you in for a time. And let's come forward onto your hands and knees when you're ready and press back, downward facing dog. Okay, from here we're going to come into pigeon pose with your right foot forward. Now if your knees complain, move your foot closer to your body. If you're more supple, your foot will move further away from your body. We're going to stay upright at first, so you can experiment with propping underneath your right hip with a blanket or two, if this helps you feel more comfortable in the pose. Wherever you are, flex your front foot to safety up your knee. Keep your knee nice and safe. If this is too much for you, you can always lie on your back, bend your knees and bring your right foot to your left leg and hold around your left leg, which is a reclined pigeon. So you've got a few choices here, but for the first couple of minutes of this pose, we're going to stay upright. So if you're in full pigeon, resist the urge to fall forward, stay upright. I'm just going to talk. So if you sat down in the evening and your legs started walking, you would say your legs are mad. Or you might have restless leg syndrome. But your mind is like this. And for most of us, if not everyone, their minds are like it too. Constantly bouncing from one thing to another, constantly moving, and yet we think it is normal. Our legs, we know, are meant to move, but not all of the time. And we can consciously and happily take the load off of the legs, which is what we're doing today. But when we do this, the physical stillness can make the mind begin to jump around all over the place. So it sort of gives the mind that urge to run. And the place or the discipline of yin is to remain still and drop that mind into the sensations. So it's not bouncing around inside the pose or bouncing around inside the box, as my friend Gemma would say. So let your mind get really interested in how things feel inside of your body as a meditation. And now, if you want to, you can fall forward into sleeping pigeon. If you're lying on your back in reclined pigeon, just stay there. If your mind is bouncing around inside the box or inside the shape, remain still and just drop your mind into the sensations in your body, into your breath, into the natural retentions. Rather than feel claustrophobic and captured by your practice, allow it to captivate you. We do not use the body to get into a pose, rather we use the pose to get into the body. Beautiful. Let's inhale here. And exhale slowly. Come out of that. It's a tricky transition now. We either can push back into downward facing dog, or we can go straight into the next pose from here by taking your back leg over your front leg. So we're coming into Gomukhasana with your left knee on top. Now once you find the pose, if you're working in the purest form on your legs, you can bring your arms down to your mat and consider the idea of folding forward. You can consider the full pose, bringing your right elbow up towards the ceiling, your left elbow coming down towards the floor and just hooking or holding your fingers behind you. If this is too much, you could take your hands into prayer behind your back. Or if you want to stretch out your wrists, you can take the backs of your hands up into your armpits, where your fingers will point out behind you here. So your legs are static, your legs are not moving, but you can feel welcome for the next 5 minutes or so. We'll be in this pose to alternate the position of your arms every few minutes or so. But please make sure this doesn't turn into fidgeting. So to make a useful adjustment is always going to be great in your practice. So move if you must. Just don't let your body bounce around all over the place. So let your movements be very deliberate. I'll run through the arm positions again. Either your arms can be down to the mat, or you can have the full pose, so right elbow is lifted, left elbow is down. Hands in prayer behind the back is also an option, or backs of hands into your armpits for a wrist stretch. Feel welcome to move between the arm positions, but move very intentionally. And be cautious your movement does not turn into fidgeting. As you feel the restriction of the pose, of the shape, lean into it. Think of it as a form of acupressure. Beautiful. Then when you're ready, slowly bring yourself out of whatever shape that you're in. And come into windscreen wiper legs again to release. Just let yourself out of the box for a little while. Gorgeous. And then press back into downward facing dog when you're ready in your own good time. And from downward facing dog, we're going to come into pigeon with the left foot forward this time. Remembering if the knees are complaining, we move the feet closer to the body. We keep the foot flexed to protect the knees. If you're more supple, your foot can move further away. You can prop underneath your left hip with a blanket or two. Or if it's too much, you can lie on your back as you did before and bring your left foot to your right leg, I believe it is. But basically you're doing reclined pigeon on the other side. Staying upright for the time being. Use the pose to get into your body. So the key in this practice when we're working with the legs is to relax as much as possible. So even though your front foot may be flexed, see if you can find other areas within your body where you can relax, such as the hinge of your jaw, or your buttocks, or your eyes, or your breath. If your mind is bouncing around all over the place, relax your brain. Relax your mind into your body, into sensation. Relax your judgments of where you are. Just be where you are. And see if you can soften into anything that is arising for you now. And as you soften here, you can allow your body to fall forward now. If you feel like that really bouncy ball trapped inside a very small box here, relax as much as possible. Use the sensations, use the edges of the box or the shape that you're in, and lean into it. As a form of acupressure. As you place this kind of stress upon your tissues, you change them so that your energy can actually have more freedom. So sometimes what feels like a prison, when we're stuck within a pose or within a shape for any amount of time, it's just a means to an end. It's a way to find more freedom in our body. Know that it's not permanent, and see if you can relax as much as possible. Okay. Let's start to bring ourselves upright, back to vertical gravity when you're ready. And our next pose is going to be Gomukhasana legs with the right knee on top. So as before, you can either come back into downward facing dog to find this shape, if that's better for your body. Or you can just take your back leg straight from pigeon over your front leg. If this pose places too much pressure on your legs, as well as your ability to pronounce things, if it places too much pressure on your legs, lovelies, you can always prop yourself up onto blankets, sit up on blankets. I'm sorry I didn't say that first time round. Now your arms can be in any position that affords you comfort here. So if you're really working with the legs, the arms can just come down to the mat and you can forget about them, or you can do the full pose with your left elbow, I believe, is up and your right elbow is down. Hands can join behind your back, or you can hold your shirt. You could have your hands in prayer position behind your back. You could even make fists behind your back and take the hands back that way. Or you can take the backs of your hands up into your armpits for a wrist stretch here. And your legs are still, so you can alternate the position of your arms every minute or so, as is your will, as is your want. Just try not to bounce around if you're moving your arm position. And change the arms as you need to, as you want to, and then be still again. This is making a useful adjustment within your yin practice. So movement can and should be purposeful. And that's fine, but just avoid fidgeting, lovelies. Be still, retain, so you can fall into that retention. As we did with the breath, we fell into that retention at the start of the practice. Now we can fall into the physical retention of just holding a pose. Beautiful. Okay. So in your own time, just extricate yourself from that shape, from that box, that particular box. And you can bounce around a little bit here using your windscreen wiper legs to release those long holds. And we can prepare now for the next pose, which is saddle pose. So have some blocks to support you. For saddle pose, we're just going to come to kneeling and just sit between your legs if you can. If you can't do that, sit onto your heels. And you might want to do this incrementally by sitting onto your heels first, waiting and then sitting between the legs if that is appropriate. Once you find the floor, you can lean back into the arms, maybe lean back onto your elbows, maybe lie all the way back if you have that kind of flexibility. If saddle is not a good pose for you today, you have the choice to come into a low lunge with back knee down. Just hold that low lunge here. So if you're not doing saddle, take one leg forward and just to let yourself sink into your hips. Use blocks to support your hands. And breathe. Move purposefully, lovelies. Make your useful adjustments. It's always going to be a great thing to do. So move if you must. If saddle is not good for you and you want to change it, move if you must, that's fine. Just don't let your body bounce around all over the place. The benefit, lovely, of holding the pose and being a ball in the box, so to speak, is the edges within us are felt. Even to a point where it might feel a little claustrophobic, we're stressed upon the edge and challenged physically through the tissues. And these stresses create tiny electrical and chemical signals that change the quality of the tissues that transmit them. So we can think of being in the box as a kind of physical or mental acupressure, as I said before, and this pressure stimulates energies to flow. So lean into your edges, lovely. Beautiful. If you're in saddle, stay in saddle. If you're in the low lunge, now is the time to swap your legs. Make your movement very purposeful, and once you find your position, be still. Think of your yin practice today as a kind of acupressure. The pressure that you feel from being a very bouncy ball in a very small box actually stimulates your energies, your inner circuitry to open and flow. Beautiful. That's 3 minutes on both sides, or 6 minutes in saddle. So let's just release ourselves from that box, that particular box. So if you've been in saddle, come out of the pose incrementally, take your time. If you've been in a low lunge, take your time. We will meet lying down on the back with our legs extended, so just like a mini shavasana here, just to release that. Just take your time getting there. And once you find the position and you're lying still with your legs extended, let your mind get really interested in how things feel and what is happening in your body. Okay, our next pose is going to be banana asana. So we're just going to take the arms and the legs over to the right side of the body, making a banana shape here. If it helps, you can cross your legs to sort of keep the shape nice and still. If it helps to hold your elbows, you can do this. Remind yourself that we do not necessarily use the body to get into a pose. Rather, we are using the pose to get into the body. This particular shape, I find this to be, quite a frustrating shape because it doesn't look like I'm doing anything. But that doesn't matter, because this pose really gets me into my body, gives me a lot of sensation, puts me in a nice tight box. So find yourself inside the pose. Get really interested in what is happening inside the pose as a meditation, and relax wherever you can relax. Hinge of jaw, buttocks, shoulders, hands, eyes, mind. Allow yourself to fall into any physical or mental pressures you feel being in this shape, and look at this pressure as a way to stimulate your energies to flow, as a kind of acupressure. As we hold the pose, it's like we press down on a certain point. But when we release it, everything moves a little better. Beautiful. Let's come back to center. And we're just going to bring the knees in towards the chest once you find center line. And just gently circle your knees to release that. And lie down with your legs extended. And take your banana asana over to the other side. As a meditation, ask what happens when we remember to breathe, when we remember this is not permanent, and when we remember to relax wherever possible. Beautiful. Let's inhale here. Exhale, bring yourself back to center. Bring your knees in towards your chest when you get there. Just gently circle your knees to release that. Lovely. Let's bring the knees in towards the chest. We're just going to take a supine twist to the right. Yogi's choice, you can extend your top leg if you like. And you can prop underneath that extended leg if that feels good for your body. Move purposefully to find the right shape, the right pose that really gets you into your body, and then get still, no fidgeting. If at any point you need to change the pose, it's fine. Move purposefully to change it and then get still again. As a meditation, and see what happens when you remember to relax wherever possible. Watch yourself gently drop through layers of tension and find more space within the shape. So the edges of ourselves can feel like a box, for sure. But when we get to this kind of stage in our yin practice, the edges actually feel more like a cocoon or a blanket that we can fall into. Place of safety, of rest, maybe even sleep. I've definitely fallen asleep in these supine twists on more than one occasion. As a meditation, see if you can relax wherever possible. Beautiful. When you're ready, inhale here. Exhale, gently tuck your knees in towards your chest if the top leg was extended. Separate your knees as you come back to center. And then we're going to twist to the other side. I believe this is your left side. And once you get there, consider extending your top leg or not. See if you can find a shape through which sleep could come. Prop wherever needed and let yourself soften. As a meditation, see what happens when you remember to breathe, to drop into the retention, the natural pause at the top and bottom of the breath. Feel the retention that is the shape that you are making. And see if you can drop into that too. Then when you're ready, lovelies, let's take an inhale here and an exhale here. If your leg is extended, you can draw the knee back towards the body, and you can separate the knees as you gently roll back to center, hugging your knees in towards your chest if this feels good, and maybe even taking a few circles with the legs here, just circling the knees. Our next pose is Shavasana. So set yourself up for a really good relax here. Grab your blankets, pop your socks on, grab an eye pillow and lie down. Make sure that your arms and legs are away from your body. Take up a lot of space. After so long being in the box, take up a load of space. So during the practice of yin, or our practice today, the pose takes us into the body. And as it does, it's very natural that sometimes we just want to run away. When we feel trapped, our legs and everything inside of us wants to move. We feel like a tiny bouncing ball, bouncing quickly within a very small box. Thanks for that, Gem. But this pose, your Shavasana is not a box. It is a sky full of stars. And you can widen here, allowing your energetic circuitry to completely release and absolutely relax. In this pose, become the brightest star in the most expansive sky. Let yourself out of the box and take up some space. Know that working through these poses or through these shapes that have felt sometimes like they've kept us trapped, our legs have gotten us here. So we've worked on the legs today and they've gotten us to this point. And even though you haven't moved from your mat, you have finally arrived. So take up space, let go, relax, and enjoy the freedom. Staying here for as long as is possible. With so much love. Namaste.